Good morning, Mark Sklarow. Did I say it correctly?
It's actually Scalaro, rhymes with sparrow.
Sklarow.
Scalaro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the College Advisor YouTube channel. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me today.
Uh,
Um,
I appreciate being invited. Thank you, Hilary.
Good. And I know you're retired now, a former CEO of the IECA. And I always like guests to also introduce themselves a little bit because I know you were president, CEO for 30 years, right?
It's true.
And
Uh, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's okay. And I wanted to ask you, how did you end up doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's probably a lesson for everybody in here in that you just don't know where things are going to take you and have to be open to new experiences and opportunities. I really started out professionally teaching and was dean of students at a high school in Philadelphia. And I really always that was a fine life for me. It's where I expected to stay. And I got recruited to come to Washington, D.C. to run a civic education program that actually had roots in the White House,
Okay.
created by a Democratic and Republican former president who created a program called Presidential Classroom. And what it did for me, it gave me a chance to, as an old social studies teacher, an old civics teacher,
Uh-huh.
it got me into Washington, D.C., which was just, I had a ball.
Sure.
Uh, but I also was learning the nonprofit world and the association world. And so it's interesting because my route into IECA was really not from college advising, it's from association management. I knew the
Interesting.
world of running nonprofits, running associations. And I think the fact that I was an old high school dean of students
Right.
and an advisor to students was a bonus, but probably isn't what really led to where I am now, retired, but where I was for 30 years. And it's funny, I have to say, I expected when I left Philadelphia and came to DC, we thought that would be a year or two, that we would move back to Philadelphia, that it would
Right.
be, I try something different for a while. But again, being open to opportunities and not knowing where things are going to take us. I think about kids going to college today.
Yeah.
Half of them are in majors that aren't going to exist
I
in 10
know.
years.
I
And
know.
so always being open to those opportunities that maybe you'll discover something exciting that you'll love is just around the corner and comes unexpectedly.
And that's every guest that I ask that question to ends up saying being similar answers in that being open to opportunities, myself included, in that, I fell into this because of a former IEC who invited me. I didn't even know. I said, but you do it. Why would I do it? Right. So yeah, being open to opportunities, I think, is a great piece of advice for kids, and knowing you don't have to know exactly what you want to do because you may think you know what you want to do, and then somebody's gonna say, "Hey, what about this?" or "I have this opportunity," and you just never know. It's about taking chances, right?
Yeah, 31 years ago when I applied for the job at IECA, I didn't know what an independent educational consultant was.
Right.
And I was applying because I was looking for a new opportunity, and it was a trade association of professional counselors. And I thought,
Sure.
well, that certainly sounds like an interesting thing
Uh-huh.
to do. No idea that it would be 30 years of being involved in that work, which I loved. Obviously, I wouldn't have been there for 30 years.
No, no. And you're missed. And
Yeah.
I, I always felt like you were the father of all of us in a way and taking care of us, but yet leading the agency in a way that I thought, or the organization in a way that I thought was fantastic, and really taking a stand
Well,
on things. And, there's always conflict with that, but you handled it well.
Well, thank you, Hilary. That's very kind. It's funny. I've never thought of myself sort of the father of the profession, but as I look back, even hearing you say that, certainly during that varsity blues scandal
Hmm.
period, I
Hmm.
felt like that was my role. My job was to be protective of all of the folks doing this ethically, responsibly,
Sure.
and and doing great work. I didn't want them to be dragged down by the
No.
actions of some fraud.
No, absolutely. Which is perfect segue to my next question, which is if families are trying to find, the right IEC, I'm going to say A at the end, but that's the association
Yeah.
IEC. Are there maybe five top points that you would recommend that people look out for? It could be 10, but I think let's keep it to five.
I'll do my best to keep it to five. Maybe one will have two parts, so I can squeeze in six, but we'll see. So I'm going to start actually with what you said. You added the A for the association.
Yeah,
I think finding a consultant who is affiliated with a professional organization is
right,
key. It's sort of the shortcut. Is this person ethical? Do they keep up with things that are going on in the field? Do they have colleagues that they can rely on with different specialties to assist them if it's needed? So I think my number one would be finding somebody who is affiliated with IECA, or if it's at NACAC, National Association for College Admission Counseling, although that's primarily school-based counselors. Find somebody who's affiliated. The second thing I would say is find somebody who's ethical.
hmm,
I think we have seen, and I mentioned Varsity Blues before,
right,
but we've seen working with somebody who is willing to be unethical is a surefire way to get rejected at a college, even
sure,
retroactively, by the way, that you could be dismatriculated, or whatever the right word there
right,
is,
right, kicked
if
out.
they discover correct, if they discover that there was something fraudulent in your application, and that could happen even a couple of years in.
Wow,
So you really want to make sure you're working with someone who's going to be doing this in an ethical way.
right,
I really think you have to, a third item, I would ask, how do you keep current? The single most important thing is somebody who is still visiting colleges.
hmm,
They go to conferences or go to attend webinars or podcasts. They read. Somebody who has to keep current. And I'll use the example of right now, we're in an era where federal policy on education is changing sometimes by the hour.
right, right,
And we don't know what financial aid is going to look like next year, let
right.
alone years from now. And so how do you keep current? And hopefully you hear that I'm out and on the road all the time. I am attending webinars. I meet with colleagues. I think the fourth thing is, what's the experience that they bring to the field? And now I'm going to say something a little controversial.
That's okay.
I often hear families say, well, should I be looking for someone who is director of admission somewhere? They were director of admission at Penn or at Duke or somewhere else. And I go, no,
Right.
that may be nice, but that certainly doesn't tell you what you need to know. Hillary, as you know, you store in your brain information about thousands of college details, right?
Hmm.
Hundreds of colleges, dozens of details on each of all that information that you keep. Too often, when people say, you should hire me, I used to be assistant director of admission at Brown University.
Right.
You know what they know? They know Brown University.
Exactly.
And if you're not interested in Brown, or if you're applying to Brown, great, but you better be applying to 20 other places because the odds are so slim.
Right.
So I think you're looking, when I say experience, I mean, they've worked with kids, they've advised students, that they have done their campus visits, and they've done the education and training necessary to do a good job. And the fifth thing I'm going to say on my little list is, does this consultant connect with your own child?
Right.
Just
Absolutely.
as you're helping a student find the right college where they're going to thrive, where they're going to connect, where they belong.
Right,
You sort of have to make sure that the student gets along with the consultant as well, because there are going to be some significant conversations that may take place.
right,
And you
right,
don't want a student feeling like, well, I don't know if I trust this person. I don't know if I can share. Can I tell them my secret that I don't want anyone to know?
right,
And so you want to know that the student connects. I've always said it's great if a parent wants to go out and look for an educational consultant, there should be a meeting with the student, a get acquainted meeting
right.
that does include the student and the consultant. Everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yeah. And
Mom, mom and or dad, consultant and the kiddo
right,
have to sort of be on the same page that, you know what? This is a relationship that can work because it's going to be a pretty tumultuous
yes.
year that we're going to be together.
I always joke, parents, a lot of times parents will call me first and we'll have this connection. And I know they would love to just hire me, but I always tell them, your kid has to be part of this because I joke with kids, over the summer, I'm going to be your new best friend because we're going to be spending a lot of time together getting all of this done. So 100% I agree with you. As much as I would like a mom or dad to just hire me, it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, and
Have to agree.
mom and dad probably do know a lot, and they're going to know whether this is a person their
Yeah,
kid's going to like. I certainly felt that way when I hired consultants for my daughters.
right.
Uh, but it's good. You also want the kid to buy into the process. You want them to
Absolutely.
feel like they're empowered because, as you know, part of it is figuring out who the kid is,
Right.
what makes them tick, what gets them excited. And so that's part of that relationship is helping a student to realize this is as much getting to know yourself as it is to know the colleges that you may be looking toward.
Right. 100%. Thank you for saying that. And I didn't pay you either.
Not a penny.
Okay. Did we get through five?
We did.
Good, good. Um, the other thing that I was thinking about, and thank you for sharing that, because I think what you're saying is just so important. And I think, when people interview me, I always tell them, if you decide not to hire me, make sure that you look for these things in people and that they're part of an association, because I know we've all heard a parent can think, oh, well, I helped my child get admitted to college, so now I know what I'm doing. And it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, and especially because the kid that walks through the door, as you know, Hillary, probably has nothing in common with that person's own child.
Right, right,
There may be a learning difference. There may be an emotional issue that's involved. It could be a kid who's really into STEM or a kid that runs from STEM. And
right,
so it's just a whole different ball game. And having worked with your own child, good for you. That may be a place to start. When parents call me and say, you know what, I love doing this with my kids. I
right.
now want to do this. The first thing I tell them is, go out and visit 30 or 40 other colleges, and then give me a call back.
Right,
And then we can talk about what the next steps are. But you've got to look at colleges that are completely inappropriate for your child to get a feel for who would that college be appropriate for? Because
right.
I'm a believer that, some colleges are certainly well known and are highly rejective or highly selective, depending upon how
Yes,
you want to say it. But we also know that that every college is the right place for somebody.
yes,
And so you have to go into this thinking, I can be as excited helping a child with C's and a
right.
mediocre record, finding a place where they can suddenly grow into themselves, as I was with a child who ends up in an Ivy League institution.
Absolutely. There's a college for everybody. There really is. And they're good colleges. We get a
Yeah.
lot of those. I only want to go to a good college. And then we have to talk about that. So As our world is rapidly changing, you mentioned at the beginning, we were talking about just government changes in education, but I also, you know, AI has swept in and changed our lives dramatically, and that's going to continue to happen. And I know people can think sort of like hiring a mom who thinks, or a dad, or whoever who thinks just because they got one person in or they got in themselves. But, you know, I know people can go out there and type things into Chat GPT or whatever. And I think maybe talking about your thoughts on that and why the human connection is still important.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been writing a lot about AI over the last few weeks
Yeah.
and ways that it's transforming the profession. I would say this that and boy, we could talk about AI globally and within
Right,
this,
right.
but let's stick to this context. AI is going to feed you back when you ask questions. They're going to feed you back generally known information.
Mhm.
Let me give one example. If you went in and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a college that has biomedical engineering and is near the beach,"
Right.
whatever, the odds are that AI is not going to feed you back some of the small liberal arts colleges that you and I know are often the perfect match for a
Right,
student. It's most likely going to feed back big state universities that we all know of anyway, because they're feeding back the information that gets used most often.
right,
AI is also not able to have, because I'll do it this way. You've spent time with that child.
right,
You may see a kid who's excited about college, but is not going to thrive in a competitive environment. And let's not look at those colleges because I don't think you're going to be happy there. Let's look at this group of colleges, which
right,
are much more cooperative. They're much more about community. But there's so many cases like that. AI, Chat GPT hasn't walked those college campuses as
no,
you and your colleagues have,
no,
and haven't stopped kids to say, another good example. AI may say, here are the 63 clubs that this university have. But you and I are both laughing about that because
right,
we know of those 63 clubs, probably 10 or 15 are very active
right,
on campus. And you could learn that by going on campus and saying to students, what do you do in the evenings? What
sure,
do you do on the weekends? And you start to see certain clubs maybe emerge, or on some colleges, you'll hear when you're on that campus and you'll talk to students that all the fraternities and sororities run this place.
sure,
And other colleges, you'll hear, oh, nobody belongs to like fraternities and sororities
right,
anymore.
right,
And so you're never going to get that personal connection to the real life kid that's sitting in front of you. And
sure.
likewise, students, I like to say, no student has ever been admitted to a college because they have a good AI generated essay.
No,
They're going to get in because of the personal story they told that AI couldn't possibly have generated for them.
no,
So
no,
look, there's going to be a role for AI. I think the job of an educational consultant is going to be more difficult. Not that families think they're going to get answers from AI, because they're not.
right.
They're going to get this same generic babble over and over again.
Of course.
But it's going to be harder because we're not quite sure what jobs are going to still be around. The group of kids that graduated in 2025, I'm about to scare anybody that's listening that has
Uh-oh,
kids.
uh-oh.
If you were a CS major, if you were a computer science major
Right.
over the last 3 years of your life and you just graduated, you're probably having a very difficult time getting a good starting job. And that's because everyone's shifted. They now want experts in AI technology. And suddenly, what the CS folks did is being done by AI. And
Yeah.
so I think that's going to be the challenge for the future. But I actually think that let me add this.
Yeah.
I'm old enough, much older than you. So I remember when the internet was first coming and there were
Yep.
consultants that said, oh, we're going to be out of work because everyone's going to be able to find what they need on the internet. They're not going to need us anymore. And of course, what families discovered, you went to the internet and you typed college admission and you got 4 billion matches. Like, what good did that do you? You
No.
need somebody who can figure out what are the things that I can help you. We can narrow the field. Is there still a role for AI? Sure. When
Right.
you say to a student, here are 12 colleges that I would love for you to look at, and the student and parents say, I only heard of 6 of those
Right.
and you say, I promise those other 6 may not be colleges you've heard of, but they're well thought of, well respected. Go do some research. And
Right.
maybe AI is going to be useful there to say,
Absolutely.
hey, tell me about Goucher College in Baltimore and what students think of Goucher College. And suddenly their world expands. So there's a role to play, but they're not going to find Goucher on their own. They're
No.
going to find Goucher or Oberlin or, Muhlenberg because an educational consultant said, hey, here's a college you may not have heard of, but boy, I think would be a great match for you.
Absolutely. And you know how we started talking about keeping an open mind and with our careers and how we got to where we are. I tell kids the same thing when we're searching for colleges, that sometimes I'm going to put a school on your list and you're going to think I didn't listen to you. But I did because I think this could also be good and just look at it. You don't have to go there, I promise, but think
It,
about it.
it reminds me of one of my daughters went to a secondary school here in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia is where I
Right.
live, with 5,000 students. And when she was getting ready for college, she said to her educational consultant, well, I need a big school. My high school had 5,000.
Right.
I'm not going to be happy at a small college. I need a really big college. And the consultant put a small liberal arts college on the list, just what you said. My
Mhm.
daughter said, she didn't hear me. I only want to look at big schools. And the consultant said, go.
Just
I
look.
want you to go with an open mind because my daughter pictured something the size of her high school. She
Right.
didn't picture 100 acres of different buildings,
Right.
and it felt like a big campus. And my daughter came back and said, that's the exact kind of college I want to go to.
So
And
she
so
glad the
it was
consultant was listening.
the consultant was listening to all the other pieces. I
Right.
want a place where I know everybody,
Right.
where I get to meet my professors. And maybe, my daughter was like, maybe I could babysit their kids or walk their dogs because you get to see them as people.
Right.
And of course, the educational consultant said, you do not want a big state university because that's not what you're describing.
Right.
And so, yeah, you never know. And it's
Right.
keeping that open mind.
Right. I agree. So, Mark, I know you're involved with Character Collaborative, right? You're on the board, I think. Yes.
Correct.
Tell me about these non-cognitive skills that organization looks at and how it applies, because that's my angle. That's how I work, having been a therapist in child development and all of that, that I think it's beyond just your grades. Everyone, no, I shouldn't say everyone. So many people are so focused on your grades and your test scores and having 10 million activities, but what's behind it,
So I'm going to share a story first that leads into this. And I
Okay.
was having a conversation with Bill Fitzsimmons. You know,
Yeah.
Bill is the director of admission at Harvard. Been there for many, many years. And Bill and I were having a conversation, and he said, Mark, uh, I could have taken last year's admitted class and rejected every single one of them. Completely reversed. At the last minute, we could have said, you know what? No, let's go to
Okay.
the next tier. And the average SAT score would not have dropped a single point. And the average GPA would not have dropped a single point.
Right.
He said, these kids you're applying to Harvard. You're smart. You have good grades. You have
Right.
great test scores. So what causes me to say yes to this student and no to that one? And they talked about these non-cognitive skills. So, do you know what we want? We want kids that understand teamwork. We
Hmm.
want kids that have grit and determination. Here's the theory. Every kid at some point in college is going to have something that tanks.
Yeah.
They're going to take one test, they're going to get the first D or F
I
in their
know.
lives, or they're going to miss a deadline and they have never missed the deadline before, but suddenly they're going to do that. The question is, does that kid fall apart, or does that kid have this determination in them that
Right.
they are going to fight to succeed? They're going to find a way to make it work and turn it around. He even said, I want kids that show appreciation. One of my favorite essays in this regard, University of Pennsylvania has had an optional essay, write a letter of appreciation to someone who made a difference in your life.
Wow.
In part, they want it to be so unique that AI can't answer that question for you, but they want to see that you understand the value of helping others and appreciating when others help you. So all of those skills
Right.
are really going to serve you well in life.
Right.
Being book smart is wonderful, and you're not going to get accepted if you're not smart into these top tier
Sure.
colleges. But
Sure.
they're also looking, the question becomes, are you a good person? Are
Yeah.
you a good citizen on campus? Yeah, are you showing empathy toward others? So I think all of those have become so important. And as you know, but not everyone listening may be aware, how does a college judge that? Well, essays are the most obvious place.
Sure.
And if that essay is designed for anything, it's to give you that opportunity to talk about those non-academic skills that you will bring with you to campus.
Sure. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The most obvious example is, you may have straight A's, perfect SAT scores, and be a real jerk of a
Yeah.
human being. What college wants that kid? I
Right.
mean, they just don't want them. They
Right.
want someone who has those great academic skills, but is really going to come join campus, be a good
Listen.
colleague
Right.
to their fellow students.
Right. And I think it makes me sad because I know there's so much pressure put on kids these days. I mean, I don't think any of us could do what they all
Right.
do, half of them or three-quarters of them. They're jumping through hoops and I feel like they're missing out on this sort of core piece because there's so much focus and fear through the media of, the rejective colleges. But as we know, there's so many more out there that they don't know about. And I think
It's
it's
true.
so
And kids, I think, have
important.
a misperception of
Yeah.
who these colleges want. I give an example. I was doing an online show where parents could type in questions,
Hmm.
and a parent said, none of those elite colleges want my kind of kid because we're on a farm in Kansas. We're
Uh-huh.
not from a big city. We're not fancy people. My kid wakes up every morning not to go to science club, but they wake up because they have to take their bicycle to their grandmother's home a half mile away, get the grandmother fed in the morning, giving the grandmother breakfast,
Wow.
and then gets their siblings off to school before they go. And then they come home and they have chores around the farm. What That's not going to be what a school is looking for. And I
Oh,
said, it is what every school is
au
looking for.
contraire. Yeah.
Yeah. It's you need to have your child tell that story
Right.
of what their life is like and why they do it and how it makes them feel and all of that. And and it's unfortunate because I think it takes someone like you to say to a kid, you know what? You're helping to round out that student body.
Right.
We used to say back in the early days that
Yes.
colleges wanted well-rounded kids. I don't think that's true anymore. I think most of us know that that's not true.
Yeah.
They want pretty pointy, not well-rounded, but pointy kids who really excel. But they want well-rounded student bodies.
Yes.
And that means finding kids who are unique and different in different areas. And to me, that's a good example of a kid finding the right college who's looking for the kind of person they are.
Right. No, that's a great point. And I hope that people who listen to this take heart to that, that it's okay. I always tell when I'm working with students, and should I take this next AP and should I join this and should I do that? And I said, only if you really want to, because it's important to you. If you're
Yeah,
doing it because you think it's going to help you get into a college, it may not, and we'll never know whether that class was the tipping point, but you're already overloaded and you're giving up your childhood basically, and
yeah.
at home studying and studying and not getting enough sleep. And then you still might get disappointed in that. I promise them, I can't promise them which college they'll get into, but I promise them if we've crafted, a well-balanced list, there are plenty of opportunities out there.
Yeah, Hillary, I love that. And I do think that kids are better off if, look, let me do it this way. You and I know the word of the last few years has been authentic,
Yeah.
right? The colleges want kids whose record looks authentic,
Yeah.
not a kid who is taking, like I did, all social science classes. I took, my electives in high school back in the day. I took psychology and I took sociology. I took, it
Yeah.
was all social sciences. And my counselor at the time said, Mark, you need to take AP Chem and you need to, and I'm like, that is not me. And
No.
I will not be happy doing that, nor would I think a college would say, wait a minute, suddenly this kid is taking advanced science classes. It would have
Right.
made no sense for me. And so I think that, as you said, there are great colleges who are going to want you for who you are. And isn't that match a
Yeah.
place where you're going to go and say, this is where I belong,
Right. And also
rather than someone who took you for taking a class that you really didn't want to take in the first
no.
place?
And also for kids to understand, be true to yourself, which I know is really hard when you're a teenager. But if you can start developing that young, it will bode you well as you go on and what kind of job and what kind of work environment you're going to be in. Like, it's like fitting what is it, the round peg into the square, the opposite way. But
Yeah.
if you're true to yourself, things work out. I believe that.
I believe that too. And I believe, by the way, you'll probably find classmates similar to yourself,
Yeah,
which is going to
100.
make for a happier college experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, trends in college admissions right now. And I'm talking what we were talking about a little bit before we started recording of just all the changes that are going on. And it's hard to keep up with. And it's concerning at times, and not always like a lot of times not having the answers for somebody, and then you have the answer, and then tomorrow that answer doesn't apply anymore. So,
Yeah, let's say this. If you are 16 or 17, you probably don't know. This isn't normal.
yeah,
This isn't typical that the rate of change is as dramatic as it is today.
right.
Things used to change, but they would change very slowly. People used to laugh about if you want something done, never ask like the government to do it because it'll take 40 years. And suddenly we're seeing dramatic changes. And I'm not going to get into the politics. Some
No,
people
no.
will think it's wonderful the change is taking place, and others will be horrified. But the changes are happening so quickly. And I think we don't know the full effect of some of those.
Okay.
We know that we know some of the changes, right? We know that financial aid is certainly changing, probably going to be more privatized there, which also means testing. So
Right.
the old guarantee that every student could get some financial aid that was government supported, that's probably going away. We
Okay.
don't even know what government agency is going to be running financial aid because it's been made pretty clear that it's being taken away from the Department of Ed, which is being severely downsized, if not closed completely. So look, all of these, but there's even beyond that. We know that state governments are changing quickly, and I think that students should look before deciding what college, their final decision. They should look at what are the laws and regulations, even within the states that they're
Absolutely.
looking at. There are students who would say, I would not want to go to a state that restricts um, my ability to get health care.
Yeah.
Uh, that I may need when I'm at college. And so um, I think that it's important for students to do their best and families to do their best with keeping up and understanding. So here's my little bit of help for consultants. I would hope that families would understand that consultants are going to say, I need to double check that.
Yeah.
That's something that may have changed since last year. So I want to go double check and I'll get back to you on that. I
Right.
think maybe the other thing in admission that really is the change that's taking place is how opaque the decision-making process in college campuses for admission has become. I think if you went back a generation or two, you knew who was going to get in and who was not going to get in. You could
Right.
look at a student's record and you could say to a student, "Oh, I'm 90% sure they'll accept you," or, "This doesn't look right." Now I feel like nothing is a 90% gamble anymore.
No, no.
At best, it may be 50-50.
Right.
That means a kid with top grades going to a very competitive school, it's 50-50. The thing that I want to remind parents is it's not about getting in. Like,
No.
I think too many people think it's the game of what's the hardest college that's willing to accept me, and
Right.
that's where I should go, instead of it's about getting out.
Yeah.
Where are you going to go that you will thrive, that you will succeed, that you're going to do well, that you're going to make friends probably for life. You know, so it's not about did I get we used to say the fat envelope. Now I get the happy email telling me that I'm accepted,
Right.
but it's about what really is the right place for me. But
Right.
it's become scary because I think we just don't know the way we used to, who is going to get in and who's not.
And I agree. And I even think, COVID was a pivotal point too. Being in California with the UC system, we could kind of gauge, you could never promise a kid, but I knew which UCs they had a better chance at. And every year it keeps changing. And I just say, they're all reaches and err on the side of caution, and we'll see what happens. But I
Yeah.
think the other thing too, Mark, that when you were talking about, the hardest college to get into, as we call them, reaches, or however people term them, I try to talk to kids about why it's a reach and not only thinking about getting out, but how do you want to spend your college years? Yeah, you're there to learn. Your parents, if you're lucky, are paying for your education, or if you're paying for it. It's a huge financial investment these days. And because it's a name brand or a school that everybody's going to recognize. I had a client who I said that to, the girl decided to go to that school anyways, her reach school. And the dad later told me, he goes, "You were right," because she had to work twice as hard as everybody else and missed out on certain things. And that's okay. That was important to her. But for kids to understand that, like you're going to give, it's all give and take anyways, but how much do you want to give up to get a diploma with that name on it?
Yeah, I can think over the years, we've gone to a number of weddings for, nieces, nephews, and kids, friends of ours, their kids. I will say this, those that have been to this kind of small liberal arts college that might not have been on the top of everyone's list because they may not have heard of them,
Right.
I have seen the wedding colors are the school colors because they went to the school together.
Right.
And the groomsmen and the bridesmaids are all of their friends from that college. It is now it's different. I also know friends that went to Princeton and they remain friendly with the those that they met there. But I think that you have to remember that there's more to college than just the name on the diploma. It's going to be
100%.
what happens during those years that you're there. What can you make the most of it? And
Right.
as you know, for some kids, that means I want to be able to go to a football game on Friday nights. And there are other kids who are going to be like, I could care less about a football game. But I'd love to think that we're going to sit around discussing philosophy all night
Yeah.
long. Kids are different, and they should
Yes.
accept the fact that colleges are different too.
Right.
And so it's finding the right place for you, as we know, is sort of the core value of educational
I
consulting.
know, which is a hard sell at times, but you put it out there, and in the end, it's the student's life, the family's decision ultimately. But
Yeah.
so if you were talking to a college-bound student right now, high school student, do you have any important advice that you think? I know you have advice, Mark. You always have advice, which is why I asked you on today.
So I'm going to assume, because I get to decide, that we're talking to somebody who is in maybe ninth or 10th grade.
Mhm.
And I think the most critical piece of advice I would say to them is be yourself.
Yeah.
Do what interests you. But find something that interests you.
Yes.
Find something that gets you excited. Find something that that you can get really excited about, both academically and what do you like beyond academics that gets you really excited. I think, I hear from a kid who's going to be an Eagle Scout.
Hmm.
And I think, oh, that is amazing. Do
Right.
you love that? And every so often you hear, oh my God, scouts everything. I'm going to stay in scouting for the rest of my life. And then you'll get others say, nah, I sort of just, I promised my parents I would go to Eagle Scout and I really
Right.
don't like it. Oh, unfortunate, because they could have found something else that they really liked. But
Right. Right.
sometimes it's find what you love, make opportunities happen. I'll use this example. Students interested in journalism, a lot of students go through a phase in high school years where they're thinking, ooh, maybe I could be a journalist.
Sure.
And it's like join the school paper, figure out places to do it, but then go to your local neighborhood weekly.
Yes.
Maybe they've never had an intern and ask about becoming an intern. Uh, Basically, can you try on that job for a little while and see if it's something you really like?
Right.
Right? I think those of us who think back, in the Watergate years, we used to think about being a journalist was being in dark alleys in a
Sure.
trench coat, watching these surreptitious exchanges going on. And today, 90% of your work is spent online doing research.
Sure.
And so you want to try that out and do it early enough that if you love it, you can progress and do
Right.
more and more. And if you hate it, you have an opportunity to try something else. But that also means even academically, right? I know that almost every high school in America and colleges want you to have sort of a broad high school
Sure.
curriculum, but most want to see that you pursued things that you have a particular interest in. I've heard from students who said, I want to go to college to major in psychology. I'll say, oh, it's a shame your high school didn't offer psych. It's not on your transcript. Oh, they did, but my counselor said it would be better for me to take an
Right.
advancement course. And it's like,
I know.
maybe in the absence of general information, that would have made sense.
Right.
But for you, you should have found a way to take psych.
Absolutely.
One, give you those experiences, and two, you may have decided I really don't like psych. So,
Exactly.
but I think beyond the be yourself, uh, pursue what you love. Again, getting into college is about the match. It's not about kind of inventing a fake you,
Yeah.
meaning you personally. It's not a
Right.
fake
Right.
resume
Right.
that you think will stand out. It's really about being true to yourself.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Thank
That's good. This could be embarrassing if we disagreed.
No, well, I don't think I know who I'm bringing on. So, and I think because what you said also led the organization for so many years of having those values that are important and not just putting kids on a hamster wheel and just like feeding the frenzy, where hopefully the majority of people who are part of some organization understand that it's okay not to be on that hamster wheel. It's okay. And that's hard to tune out the noise. And I know I get calls from parents, my friend said, and my kid should do that. And I always say, don't listen to them. Your kid is unique to themselves, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Mark. I really, really enjoyed talking with you. I should have asked you to show us your puppy, but
I,
is
I have my puppy sort of locked off from the
I
room
was
where I
gonna
am
say
right now.
is the puppy in the penalty box? I don't know.
Not quite, but is shield. I'm shielded from the puppy at the moment
I
because
understand.
feeling very attached to me. Well, I love the opportunity to come speak with you. I appreciate your inviting me.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.